Time to discuss one of 2027's top recruits, all the recruits that are committing and decommitting, LSU's ridiculous situation with their AD and their coaching search. Let's talk college football.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Like all our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda. Move and be moved. We're going to be discussing college football picks at the end of the very end of the show, just for some fun. But there is a lot going on with these, and there's a reason I'm bringing it up, because I think there's a possible coaching firing that could happen. It'll start this weekend. If it does, I'll get to that later in the show. And speaking of firings, Scott Woodward is out at LSU. If you have not listened to Matt Moscona's Locked On LSU episode, highly recommend that you do. He's as dialed in as anybody in the college football world into one school, and a lifelong LSU guy that lives in Baton Rouge, works for the local ESPN affiliate, and is also, again, Locked On LSU host. He gives some details, and I want to give my take on Scott's thoughts because they impact the roster for LSU, the recruiting for LSU, the head coaching hiring for LSU, everything going on there. The latest commitments and decommitments, and I start with Joshua Douthard. He is arguably the best slot receiver I've went to see this year in terms of just getting deep and running by guys. He's as fast as anybody you're going to find. He's only a junior in high school. Great kid on the field, off the field. He was literally helping players up from the other team after they got tackled when he was playing corner. And he hardly ever comes off the field. Punt returner, corner, slot receiver, and just all-around playmaker. Ran a 4.4 at Auburn's camp this past summer. About 5'9", 5'10", 170 pounds. Electric, class of 2027 prospect. He will be playing with Coastline Stars in the offseason, one of the better 7-on-7 programs in the country. And he will certainly make a name for himself. His first big offer was from Notre Dame, which is weird because he's from Odenville, Alabama, St. Clair County High School, just a little bit northeast of Birmingham, maybe 40 minutes from downtown Birmingham, give or take. That's pretty interesting, but the Irish got in on him early, so congrats to them. But I can assure you, after seeing Joshua Douthard play last night, there's very little doubt to me that's not a 30 offer kid, conservatively. How many want to get involved? If he tells schools, I'm just down to these 5, don't worry about it, that's up to Joshua and his family. But Douthard is one of those guys that is so athletic and so gifted, there'll probably be schools that, quote unquote, don't care, and they're just going to let it rip anyway. So with that being stated, I've got a video I'm going to play. This is the second play of the game. First play, he ran a jet motion, got 1 yard. Didn't think that much of it. But this next play, well, it puts it in perspective. Watch the far side of the field here. He goes deep. And for those of you listening, it's pretty simple. He made a quick move to the left, beat the DB, ran around him. And by the way, I don't know who the quarterback is for St. Clair County, but it was a really nice pass. But when the second play of the game goes for like 70 yards and it wasn't competitive, it sets a tone. And I want to talk a little bit about why plays like this are so important in football in general. This is obviously a high school game. It's a 5A game in the state of Alabama, not that far from Birmingham. But let me be very clear. One of the most difficult plays in all of football to stop is a fade ball, whether it's from the tight end, the slot, the boundary, the flank. It doesn't matter. When you work with a little bit more room, it's very difficult to slow a guy down. And on this play, he was on the outside, and it's fine. But he ran from the slot. He ran from outside. They moved him around. At the college level, Joshua probably going to play slot predominantly. He could play some outside too in certain circumstances where you want to get him on a bubble screen or a tunnel screen, whatever you want to call it. But again, he just runs by guys. He had 3 touchdowns in the first half alone, and he dropped a touchdown. The very next play, they had the ball. He ran another route on the other side. He was on the right side, and he dropped it. He actually ran around the guy, stacked him, and he just dropped the ball, or else he just scored on that one. So he would have scored on consecutive deep passes. That's pretty interesting because everybody in the stadium knew who the fastest guy was. And I'm not really sure what Asheville's defensive stance was because they didn't play bump to get hands on him, and they played a little off, and the kids weren't getting hands on him at any point. It was just comical. And they have several other players at St. Clair County. I had no idea how much speed they have. They've got a kid that's even in 7th grade coming up that is going to be a dude, but they've got sophomores at outside linebacker, at running back, at receiver, etc., all over the place. They've got a couple of seniors that are really good players. They've got a junior offensive tackle that's massive. I didn't know anything about St. Clair County, and that is why you go to the games. And I love going to high school football. It's a lot of fun. And congrats to everybody involved there because that is a good football team. And good luck to them in the playoffs. They only lost 1 game so far in this season, but they're headed to the playoffs coming up here, I think, next week. Next up, just want to talk a little bit. There's not a lot of action, but a little bit about the commitments that have happened over the last 24 hours or so. If you had not heard, I talked about it yesterday. Keyshawn Stansel flipped his commitment from Clemson over to Miami. He's a defensive tackle out of Clayton, North Carolina. Big-bodied kid. 24/7 has him ranked just outside the top 200 players in the country and at 270 pounds. I think he's a little bigger than that, but whatever it is, really good football player, huge pickup for the Canes because that's a guy that can play on the inside and be a true pass rusher at some point because he's got the athleticism to do it. Interior pass rushers matter a lot. On top of that, he's a guy that just with his natural frame is going to be pretty good against the run, even if he's getting double teamed. He's going to take out blockers and allow your linebackers to flow to the football. Also, Nikir Helton out of Winslow Township in New Jersey. He's committed to North Carolina. They've been in and out of the news in terms of commitments and decommitments. And this is a kid they get that's a wide receiver, twitchy kid out of Winslow Township. But on the other side of that, it's not all just good news for North Carolina because they've had guys decommitting. They've obviously not had the greatest start to their season. And Marcellus Ryan, a corner out of Juniper Serra High School in Gardena, California, he recently decommitted. That would have been yesterday. So North Carolina gets one and they lose one. Jeremy Garner out of Iowa Colony High School just outside of Houston has decommitted from San Diego State. That's a really good program, by the way. 5'10", 150 pounds, no longer with the Aztecs. Jermaine Mitchell at a Copa Lincoln Community College in Weston, Mississippi, has decommitted from Mississippi State. That's kind of surprising. Mississippi State really relies on the junior college ranks and especially local ones. Curious what's going on there. But interior offensive lineman, 6'8", 310. That's what 24/7 has him listed at. But at 6'8", I'd imagine he'll end up playing tackle. We'll see where Jermaine ends up long-term. Jackson Gates at a Damien High School just outside of Los Angeles. He has decommitted from BYU. He's a corner, 6'1", 170 pounds. So there's a little bit of movement going on, but I expect, just as a warning, and I try to say this every day, this next week should be the one you see a lot of portal news. There's a little bit. I'm going to get to that probably this weekend more than right now, but there's plenty to discuss about the portal, and this is the one statement I'm going to make. Again, a little later in the show, we're going to talk about a couple of schools that are possibly going to have some movement, and that's when you really see things go crazy. Right now, Oklahoma State has the most portal movement, but they're not alone. When we come back, we're going to talk about LSU. Scott Woodward is out. Just going to give you my baseline feelings on it. Matt Moscona had his comments on Locked On LSU. I've got mine. That is next here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Mazda. This episode is also about moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board that move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. I'm going to stick with my guy, Joshua Douthard, the wide receiver / just all-around athlete at St. Clair County. I do a recruiting show that features high school recruits. And while this is normally about college players, that kid's going to be a big-time college player. If you do not know the name Joshua Douthard yet, you soon will. Great young man, really talented, good family, and that program, Coach Robinson and everybody, they've got it going on. So congrats to them. The crowd was into it. Everybody enjoyed it. That's what high school football should be all about. When you move, or when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like that, there's more to every highlight. There's more to Mazda vehicles. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's a lot of fun to really talk about this stuff. And Rebel Munchkin asked the question here in the live chat, any offers yet? He's got some. Douthard's got Notre Dame, among others. Several smaller schools offered, but now that Notre Dame has, I'm sure that Tennessee and Ole Miss and LSU and a whole bunch of other schools will look at him. Once his junior film circulates, and he's going to be on the 7-on-7 circuit with Coastline. I'm going to be working with Coastline too. So I went up to see him. He's going to have a ton. This is a kid that can play at any school in the country. Great kid, academically sound, whole 9 yards. So Rebel, I would be surprised if the Ole Miss Rebels did not get involved, if they're not already, and if they did not make an offer. That's a kid that everybody is probably going to take a look at. Auburn had him at camp this past summer. He's only an hour and 25 minutes, something like that, from the University of Alabama. Maybe they get involved. They like using slot receivers. So all of that in told, it's a no-brainer. Once you meet him and see him run, Douthard kind of takes center stage. Now, this next part here is just my take. Again, full disclosure, if you want the inside scoop on what's going on with LSU, head over to Locked On LSU. Matt Moscona is the guy that broke the Kelly getting fired stuff. He's kind of dialed in. With that being stated, I can't even keep up with everything that's going on, in all honesty, regarding LSU, because he has a different take on some of the stuff, and it is a political battle in that state, which historically you could make a strong argument the state of Louisiana is the worst run state politically because there's been so much scandal. I know at one point, like 4 out of 5 people that ran the insurance in the state of Louisiana got arrested for cheating and taking bribery and stuff. Like, it's just been terrible. But the governor didn't like the AD. They're politically opposed. He wants different people in there and this and that. And it goes back and forth. Whoever's in power at the governor's spot, it ends up being bad for somebody else, and sometimes good too. It goes up and down. But when you interject it into LSU athletics, Moscona brought up the following point, and he would know better than I, but he thinks it could cause problems for the following reason. And I'm just giving a overview that I'll give my take. He's saying with all the stuff that's going on there, why would anybody want to take the LSU job? Fair question. But my take is a little bit different. He's looking at it from a diehard purple and gold fan. I'm just looking at it objectively. I am not an LSU fan. It's still LSU. I went to grad school at LSU for a semester, decided to transfer back home, went to Ball State to finish up. But I've been around the campus, been around the people, really nice people. It's a neat city. The river and everything else, all the towns around it, the nicest people you meet. And by the way, don't ever judge a Louisiana restaurant by the outside. I'm telling you, there's great food everywhere. To that end, I think it'll be a pretty easy sell by and large. The question, though, and the LSU fans are pretty linear on their thought process about where they should be in the pecking order. They can't judge it based on whether or not they get a quote-unquote A-list hire, which is probably what they're going to do regardless of what I say, Moscona, or anything else. So what do I mean by that? If they don't get Marcus Freeman, if they don't get somebody, I don't know, maybe Lane Kiffin, it's not the end of the world. As somebody who has covered Louisiana, has lived in Louisiana, who actually attended LSU for a little while, I can tell you straightforward that it is not that hard to sell LSU. As long as the next head coach meets the following criteria, they will be fine. These are the two criticals, and the first one's for any school. The second one really pertains to LSU. Number one, you're as good as the coordinators you hire. Brian Kelly made some mistakes there. It eventually cost him his job. Number two, the head coach can't just recruit because he knows he has to. At LSU or any other place. The head coach at LSU must enjoy the process. Let me say that again. The head coach at LSU, when it pertains to recruiting, must enjoy the process. And yes, I'm referring to dealing with all the garbage that comes along with the third uncle walking in wanting his nephew or his supposed nephew to get more money because he's trying to get his own pockets greased. There's a way to handle that in a fun way. Basically, tell that guy, get the hell out of my office. Tell him I said so. There's a way to handle that stuff. You have to enjoy that. There are those that I know personally that do not, and they're either A, on the way out, soon to be fired, or ready to retire because they're done with it. It is not a normal person's game. You've got to be a little bit sick to deal with NIL and all the third uncle morons, and there are a ton of them in college football that come up and are suddenly a part of this young man's life once they get offers from LSU and Texas, etc. It's amazing how that works. You got to deal with that. And then, of course, just the recruiting itself. Do you enjoy being around young people? Yes or no? When I say be around them, I'm not talking about at practice, off the field, getting to know their family, all those things. Because again, LSU's not hard to sell. Go walk around that campus. It's dope. It's not hard. LSU's an easy sell. And oh, by the way, until Brian Kelly, the prior 3 coaches won a national title, including Ed Orgeron, who was not a game day genius. Good coach, but he wasn't Nick Saban by any stretch. Wes Miles was probably a better coach than him, and his offense made my head want to explode. It was more archaic than a caveman. And they still won a national title. If you have any common sense at all, and you are called by LSU, and they want to interview you, do yourself a favor and take the interview. Here's my little short list on this. I'm going to make one comment that probably will tick off some LSU fans because they got to get over this garbage about who they do or do not get. Summerall should be a candidate. He's got ties to Alabama. He understands those 2 programs in that state, and he coached at Troy. He's currently the head coach at Tulane. It is a complete and abject failure not to interview him. Not saying he's getting the job. I'm not saying what the pecking order is. If there is pushback on that, it will not only cost you with him, it will cost you with recruits. I'm telling you this firsthand. This is not my information. This is flat out because people do not like arrogance. That's just common sense from around the world. If you have that attitude, it's going to cost you. Secondarily, whoever it ends up being, support them. Don't pump your chest out if you're an LSU fan and they don't hire, again, let's just use it for basic. If it's not Kiffin or Marcus Freeman or somebody, it's okay. It's freaking LSU. It's not that hard. You could make an argument when the fan base backs LSU properly, big if. That's as good a job as there is in college football. But because of the stuff I've talked about during this segment with that state's political garbage, it's a broke state financially because of their political garbage over the last 100 plus years. And it's truly that deep. It's unbelievable. It's not as good a job as it should be. Some people think that it's still a top 3 job. I don't because of that off the field stuff. And then I happen to listen to Matt's podcast regarding the LSU Tigers and all the political stuff. And again, I can only give you snippets. There's no shortcut here. You have to go listen. If you hate LSU, you will not be more entertained today than if you go check out Matt's latest installment. Phenomenal. It just shows you how crazy and corrupt the world can be from one's view. And maybe Matt's off on some of it, but his inside info, again, he's the guy that broke Brian Kelly was getting canned. Kind of connected. He just interviewed the governor of Louisiana. Kind of connected. So go check that out. It will blow your mind. He has a different perspective than I do on it. Who's going to go? Because I still think they're going to get a really good hire. Whether or not, again, that matches with what LSU fans want, because they're going to be like Kiffin or bust. That's just normal for fan, because fan is short for fanatic. But that is a tremendous job. It's not hard to sell. And again, if they get the right coordinators and the coach truly is okay with recruiting in modern times, they'll be fine. That's a top 10 program year in, year out. They have a little luck with injuries in any given year, and the quarterback plays good. They're in the playoff, and who knows? They'll have as much talent as anybody. That much I do know. When I come back, I'm going to give my take on one really important thing here, and we're going to go over the college football notes across the board. But there could be another coaching firing. Could be. That kind of really gets rolling down the tracks if this weekend doesn't go the way that it should. But again, this is another school that fan is short for fanatic. That is next here on this Locked On Podcast edition. Today's show is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend, time to look back and crown this week's MVP. Who delivered? Powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. This past week, I was thoroughly impressed with Texas A&M's Marcel Reed. Going into this season, I had a lot of questions about him. He made too many decisions that really made me scratch my head. Now, he still forces the ball once in a while. He's still just a redshirt sophomore, but he is dynamic, he is electric, and he has the arm talent to get the ball anywhere on the field. He is a game changer. And just like Marcel Reed delivered for Texas A&M, DoorDash delivers for your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday that you order, stack up it all season long, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo good through November the 18th. And we are also brought to you by FanDuel. NBA's back. There's no better place to get in on the action with the NBA than FanDuel. Even if you missed the start of a game, even if you've got the hot hand riding and you want to check out something else, there's all kinds of different things you can do. Live bets, parlays, fourth quarter comebacks, all that fun stuff. Keep the game exciting with FanDuel. And right now, a little extra, you get $300 in bonus bets if you're a new customer and your first $5 bet wins. Head over to FanDuel.com and download the app today. All right, let's just have a little fun and talk about college football, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk about one game in particular. This is what I want to start with. A lot of people probably going to start when they do their previews of Ohio State and Penn State. Well, Penn State's coach isn't there. Quarterback's not there. How many of those players are bought in? That game's going to be, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, my pick is Ohio State 28, Penn State 3. That's my pick. I don't think that game will be very good. I don't think they've got much of a chance. I hope I'm dead wrong on that, by the way. But there are several other games that are better. And I'm trying to look for the spread here on this game. What do we got? I don't know if let's see. Tennessee is only -2.5 against Oklahoma. Now, why do I bring that up? The Vols are a very good football team at throwing it around. Aguilar's done a pretty good job for them, but their defense has had really untimely injuries at corner from early in the season. Remember that Georgia game? They'd have won that. They had their top 2 corners out against Georgia. You're just not going to beat anybody with your top 2 corners out. They were lucky to be in the game. They led for most of it. But they did succumb to the Dogs, and credit to them because they just smoked them in key moments down the field. Gunnar Stockton has taken a big step forward. By the way, shout out to him. He's had a really good season and gone, sadly, a little bit under the radar. He deserves better in terms of media attention, so I want to give him a shout out. But if Oklahoma, this is another one of those schools where it is a very linear line. If they lose this game, especially if it's double digits, and it could be. I mean, it's Tennessee at home. That's, by the way, Tennessee's my favorite home stadium. I love that place. If they go lose 31-21, in the off, again, fan is short for fanatic, and fans really want to see passing game. I don't know what the deal is, if it's the hand injury or what's going on, but John Mateer just doesn't look right. A lot of his passes are high. He skipped one to a guy, so he's high, he's low. Some of these guys are wide open. One of them probably would have been a touchdown last week, and he was bad against Texas too, like really bad. But you still recruited him to come over from Washington State. You brought in his offense coordinator, Arbuckle, who I think is pretty darn good. But nobody wins with the quarterback who's banged up and isn't throwing well. But fans aren't going to hear it. They've only won 6 games, 2 out of the last 3 years. Fans aren't going to hear it at Oklahoma. If they lose to Tennessee by 10 or more, fans aren't going to hear it at Oklahoma. That would be loss 3, would pretty much eliminate them from the playoff. More than likely, there's a outside chance they could, if they won the rest of their games. By the way, they play LSU at home to end the season. That's a tough game to end your season on. I'm curious to see what happens there, because if they do lose that, there's going to be a lot of heat on him. They have a bye week, and then they go to Alabama. Bama's in the middle of a playoff run too. That's going to be tough. At the end, again, they play the Bayou Bengals. I have no idea how they're going to play the rest of the season. They're probably out of the playoff run too. Anything's possible. But if Brent Venables ends up getting canned at the end of this season, the final game is 28th or 29th for OU. I think it's the 29th, which is a Saturday. The following Wednesday after that is National Signing Day. All your recruits are going to sign. Or are they? Are they? Is Oklahoma going to sign all those guys if Venables is on the hot seat? You don't think Texas A&M, you don't think Kansas State, Arizona State, USC, Notre Dame, Florida State, Miami, South Carolina, you name it, Alabama, Georgia, all those schools recruit pretty much the same people. And everybody pretty much recruits Texas, which most of their kids come from Texas. That's going to go sideways. So if Oklahoma loses this game against Tennessee, this is the beginning of the train really going off the tracks. There's been rumblings. But if that happens, especially, again, if it goes 10 points or more, perception is reality, fair or not. It could come unraveled. I'm not saying I agree with it. Need to see the game first. But if it goes sideways, this could be very bad. And I think it's unfortunate. Just the way it is. Now I'm just going to kind of run down some games and just have a little fun. I already said Penn State. I think they're going to get smoked at Ohio State. I hope I'm wrong. I'm sitting here looking at my iPad going through this list, and it's just like, oh boy, it's tough. Vanderbilt versus Texas. I like Vanderbilt. I know Texas is a slight favorite in this. They're 3.5. Why? Arch has been banged up, and their offense has been inconsistent all year. The only thing I will say, Vandy has not played a P4 opponent and thrown for over 200 yards. Texas has got a legit secondary and a darn good defense in general. Now, it's shown cracks, but Vandy doesn't have some of the talent that other schools that UT has played, Ohio State in particular. That'll be interesting. But I trust their quarterback play more than I do at Texas. Give me Vandy straight up. Miami at SMU. I'm counting on Miami to bounce back. We'll see. They won their last game, but this is the one that really matters. No offense to Stanford. They're no match for the Hurricanes. SMU at home's tough. Rhett Lashley used to be the OC at Miami. Kind of personal. And it's an opportunity for SMU to make amends. They got beat by Wake Forest last week. That's the worst thing that could have happened to the Canes. It's hard to motivate teams when the squad you're going to play just lost to Wake. Who's going to show up for SMU? They scored 12 points against the Demon Deacons. I don't expect that to be the case against Miami, but we'll see. Kevin Jennings got to play a lot better if SMU's got a chance. He was awful last week. West Virginia at Houston. I'm just going to bring this up in general. I knew West Virginia was going to be rebuilding this year. Rich Rod, he's a good coach, but that's tough. That's a really tough gig. And Houston's got it going. Houston's got it going. They're 7-1. Good for them, man. Good for them. I like them, and they've got them favored by 13.5. I think that's about spot on. That game will be really close to that margin. Something like 27-13, I could see it. I don't think West Virginia does themselves enough favors. They shoot themselves in the foot. I expect that to happen again. Upset alert, Virginia Tech and Louisville. Calling it now. I'm picking Virginia Tech straight up. Louisville's favored by 10.5. This is the kind of game where Louisville has traditionally laid an egg, even under Brom, who's a really good coach. They don't do well enough against teams. It's not a helmet game for them, like where it really matters. Virginia Tech's fired their coach, but they're playing better. I like the Hokies straight up in my upset of the week. Maryland's going to get obliterated by Indiana. There won't be any letdown. That's one thing with Cignetti's teams. They just try to kill everybody. Give him credit. Georgia and Florida play in Jacksonville, neutral site game. I expect this game to be good for quite a bit of the game, but Georgia's got better quarterback play, which makes no sense. DJ Lagley's got 10 picks this year, something like that. I expect to see Gunnar Stockton make the critical plays that he needs, both with decisions and running the football, in addition to making some pretty good passes. Again, Stockton is underrated. He's a pretty darn good quarterback. I think the Dogs are going to win out and finish 11-1. Georgia Tech, Notre Dame at Boston College, obliteration. BC is awful. Notre Dame is favored by 29.5. I don't know if it'll be that much. That game will be over at halftime. Texas Tech at Kansas State. This is another game that I'm really curious about. 2:30 kick Central Time, so 3:30 Eastern. That game's on Fox. Kansas State has been hot here of late, but they've been a roller coaster. Now, I'm not a gambling man, so I wouldn't touch this anyway, But right now, Tech is 7.5-point favorite. I trust their D-line, etc. But Avery Johnson and that squad, they got some speed. Brown and some of those guys, they can run. Don't be surprised if this comes down to a one-score game. And let's see how the young quarterback for Texas Tech, if he ends up truly being the guy that plays. I never trust injury reports. Let's see how that goes. Virginia at Cal, this is another game that could be a come-up-against moment. Virginia's won some close ball games. Is it going to be a situation they find a way to do it going all the way across the country at Cal? The young quarterback for the Bears is elite. I would not be surprised at all if that ends up being an upset, but I'll pick Virginia to win. Cal, they find a way to shoot themselves in the foot quite a bit too. Ole Miss will destroy South Carolina. Why? Because South Carolina really spent all their emotional energy against Alabama. This might be 21-0 at the end of the first quarter. That's my pick. I think Ole Miss will kill them. Michigan will kill them, but Purdue will have a couple big plays on offense. Brown, the quarterback's a pretty good player. NC State, Georgia Tech. This is another possible upset, but I don't think that GT will fall. I think they'll have a scare. Their defense isn't good enough to kill teams, and NC State's got playmakers on offense. Running back, the quarterback, etc. They've got players. Their defense, though, is horrible, and Georgia Tech will carve them up. Buster Faulkner is one of college football's best offense coordinators. USC at Nebraska. I like Nebraska straight up, even though USC is favored by 4.5. Game that's going to be played at night. Prove to me that a bunch of California kids are going to enjoy the late October, early November weather in Nebraska on an evening. I think that's worth 7 to 10 points. I've seen USC, Miami, other teams too many times playing cold weather and struggle. Give me the Huskers straight up. Utah will slightly beat Cincinnati. That game is Utah 6-2, Cincinnati 7-1. By the way, props to Cincinnati. They've had a good season, man. They've had a good season. I really think that's a good program. Satterfield's done a nice job, but it's Cincinnati, so they don't get any props. Is that a case where that'll change? If they win this game, maybe. Because then you got to think, hey, this team, legitimately, they're going to be in the Big 12 title game here possibly. They could be in the playoff. The only game they lost was the first game of the year at Nebraska. Quarterback Sorsby throws an inexplicable interception that cost him. But it was close, and they ran the ball pretty well. Nebraska's got some problems defensively, but they found a way to win a little more with offense this year. They're a quality team, but that's the only loss that Cincinnati has. If they somehow win at Utah, they're a legit contender for the Big 12, and congrats to them. That's really awesome. That's going to do it. Wrapping up this show, we're going to have more thoughts on college football and what's going on. I don't know who's going to end up being the surprise game. I've got a couple picks in there, obviously, like Nebraska over USC. Who knows? College football is wild. Enjoy it, regardless of which team you root for. Even if you're an LSU fan and you're mad at the governor or whatever it may be, it's still college football. It's still a lot of fun. Let's enjoy it. So everybody have a good one. I will talk to you again soon.